What's happening, chicken nuggets? Today, we are learning about the attack on Washington, D.C. That is right, the attack on Washington, D.C. Let's see what we got. Boom. All right. Your words for this story are canvas, delicate, perched, and quench. Canvas, delicate, perched, and quench. Canvas is a specially prepared piece of material used to paint on. You're going to hear about a famous painting that was stolen from the White House. Delicate, or not stolen, saved from being stolen in the White House. Delicate means easily broken or damaged. The teacup was very delicate. Perched. Boop. Boop, boop. It's my sound effect. Boop, boop. Perched means sitting on top of something that could not easily fall from. Something that could not easily fall from. And then quench. Your last word is quench. Say quench. Quench. I love to quench my thirst with a nice cold Gatorade. Woo! The shaved ice helped quench my thirst on a hot summer day. All right, those are the words for this story. Tune in, relax, sit back. We will begin our story. And I'm reading off my phone, so I have to shrink it down. I have to make it so I can read it. Okay. As we left off, JP and Adele were helping their grandfather Lafitte feed the horses. After they helped grandfather Lafitte get fresh water for his horses, JP and Adele let them out of the pasture. Then the children hurried back to the barn and perched themselves on some bales of hay while grandfather oiled his favorite saddle. Now, are you going to tell us about what happened next? Asked Adele as she climbed even higher on the hay bales. Sure am, grandfather responded. If you remember, the British had a 3-part plan of attack. Well, attacking Washington, D.C. was the next part of that plan. The British believed that capturing the capital would make the United States think hard about surrendering. So they put their plan into action in the summer of 1814. They sent an army of about 4,000 men to the capital, and the British army was ready to fight. Washington, D.C. was still a new town at that time. The streets were not paved, and the streets were not paved, and lots of buildings were taking place. Building was taking place. But the U.S. Congress met there to make laws, and the Supreme Court met there, and of course the president and his wife lived there. Now, we know from our records in August of 1814 was especially hot. It was a scorcher. The people in Washington, D.C. were struggling to cope with this heat when they heard that the British had landed an army near their city. At the time, there were about 8,000 people living in the new capital. What did the president do? Asked JP as she chewed on a piece of hay. The new president knew that he had to be with his soldiers as they faced the British army. He told Mrs. Madison to stay in the president's house, and he asked some soldiers to stay with her and to keep her safe. I think it's time for some tunes. Can we keep that playing? Can we keep it? What? Try this again. No, it doesn't want to play. All right. He asked some soldiers to keep her safe. And Mrs. Madison, he asked his soldiers to keep her safe, and he rode off to be with his army. Where did he go? Asked Adele. There was a battle fought in Maryland, just a few miles away from the city. The British beat the U.S. Army pretty quickly and then marched on to Washington, D.C., where many of the people in the city left when they heard that their army had been defeated and that the British were coming. The dirt roads were jammed with people trying to escape, as well as carts piled high with their possessions. I think I would have been scared, said Adele. Yes, Adele, war can be scary, and reassured Grandfather Lafitte. We are proud of those soldiers who fought to protect our country back then, just as we are proud of those in the military today who work hard to keep us safe. What happened to Mrs. Madison? JP asked, now with the barn cat sprawled across her lap. Excellent question, replied Grandfather Lafitte. Mrs. Madison had waited to see what would happen when she realized that the British were on their way. She got ready to leave. She wanted to try to save some of her things, but she did not know what to bring with her. The president's house contained so many beautiful and valuable items, but she knew that she could not take everything. In the end, Dolly Madison saved important papers and letters that she knew her husband would want. At the last minute, she asked workers in the house to remove a painting of George Washington. With the British Army so close, they did not have time to carefully remove the canvas from the frame. They had to cut it out, but Dolly Madison made it out of the president's house just in the nick of time, and George Washington was saved. What happened to the British soldiers when they got there? Asked JP with his pet, as he pet his new friend, the barn cat. The British broke down the doors and rushed inside. It seems that Mr. Madison had set the table for Mrs. Madison had set the table for Mr. Madison and his men. Some of the British soldiers later described finding a large table in the dining room set for 40 guests. They described the crystal glasses and shimmering silverware and delicate china. In the kitchen, meat had been roasting on the fire and pots and pans had been placed upon the grate. It was clear that the residents of the house had left in a hurry. Some of the British soldiers sat down at the dinner table and enjoyed a tasty meal. For some of these men, it was the first home-cooked meal that they'd had in quite some time. And when they were done, they ransacked the house. They stole anything they could carry away, and then, before they left, they set fire to the president's house. As flames burned around them, the British marched out of the city. Was everything ruined? Asked Adele from atop the hay bales. Many buildings were, explained Grandfather Lafitte. When the British Army reached the capital, they destroyed all of the public buildings. Many of them had just been built, and the President's house and the Senate, as well as the important dockyard area, storehouses, and much more. As luck would have it, the rain clouds gathered and a big storm moved in. The rain and wind helped to quench the flames. Several days later, when the Madisons returned, they found their home still standing, but it had been very badly damaged. The fire had blackened the walls, many of the windows were broken, and most of their possessions were gone. They were very sad. That's sad, said Adele as she peered down from at her grandfather. Well, the next story will be even sadder. Oop, I lost my spot. Sorry, kids. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Well, the next story will cheer you up, said Grandfather Lafitte joyfully. The British got more than they bargained for when they tried to do the same thing in Baltimore. All right, that's all I got. And I'll see you next time.